So, recently, there's been an increasing tide of material released on D&D Beyond by publishers of TTRPGs other than WotC. It started gradually a few years ago with partnered content like Critical Role's Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, A Stranger Things Adventure, and a couple other semi-related collabs like Acquisitions Incorporated. These sort of straddle the line between first and third party content, but recently there's been a flood of new things from actual non-WotC publishers, like material from the Dungeon Dudes with their Drakkenheim books, Tome of Beasts by Kobold Press, Humblewood, and Lairs of Etharis. Etharis? But now, books by MCDM are making an appearance. MCDM, I'm pretty sure, stands for Murder Cardboard Dimension Milk. I'll double check on that later, but it sounds right. MCDM is a publisher of TTRPG material founded by fun uncle Matt Colville. Anyway, while having any quote-unquote third-party content on the main D&D platform feels like a big deal, this new stuff from MCDM seems like the biggest deal. Part of this is due to the fact that MCDM is developing their own TTRPG, which is expected to be the main competitor to 5th edition. Yes, I'm actually being told that MCDM stands for Mountain Cryptid Dog Multiplier. Lots of people out there in the hobby are hoping someone will develop a quote 5e killer, and are looking to Darrington Press's Daggerheart or MCDM's yet untitled TTRPG to unseat the king. I don't know if Matt Colville himself and his team view their upcoming TTRPG as a 5e killer, because it doesn't seem like there's any bad blood between him and Wizards of the Coast. One way I know this is that they're releasing 2 of their monster books on D&D Beyond, the main marketplace and website for Dungeons & Dragons. Yes, Flee Mortals and Where Evil Lives are coming to D&D Beyond. I haven't had a chance to do a full review on either of those books, but they've gotten near universal praise from the community, and my initial skim has told me they're quality stuff. Matt and his team know how to make solid gaming content. And so what I want to talk about here today is to ask the general question, is this actually good for the hobby, or is it bad for the hobby? Because I honestly don't think the answer is clear-cut either way, and it merits debate. To kick off this discussion, I want to tell you a little story about the publishing business. See, I'm an author, mostly an independent author. I have a few books traditionally published, but the majority of my catalog, I self-publish my books. Some people look down on self-publishing, and that's fine, but I have chosen to do it. I want control over my intellectual property, and I want to keep a significantly larger portion of my book revenue, so that's why I went indie. When you self-publish, you have a number of options as to where to publish your books. Barnes & Noble, the Apple Bookstore, Kobo, and a few others. But the largest bookstore in the world is Amazon. And Amazon's market share is larger than all the other bookstores put together. If you were to boycott publishing on Amazon and only work with the other stores, you would have an uphill battle to success as an author. It's virtually impossible. Amazon knows this, and they also have an optional program called KDP Select, where you agree to publish a book only with Amazon and not on any other stores or websites, and that gives you a larger share of the book profits and access to other perks that are too complicated to explain here. And the thing is, most of my books are in this Amazon program because the benefits are just too enticing. In the book biz, we call this being exclusive versus going wide. And I know that overall, being exclusive to Amazon is bad for the book business, but I can't refuse it because the money is just too good. I detest making this deal with the devil, but what am I gonna do? I'm a grown-up with bills and my mortgage ain't gonna pay itself. Real quick, since I have you, could I get a like and subscribe below? It only takes a second, and make sure that you click all next to notifications. Competition is good for business. I don't know if Daggerheart or Shadowdark or the MCDM RPG will be 5e killers. Also, I'm being told now that MCDM actually stands for Muppet Creator Detests Missouri. Anyway, I don't know if any of these tabletop RPGs are ever going to dethrone WotC's cash cow Dungeons & Dragons, but I do know that competition is good for the game. It's good for us. Here's another little story to illustrate this point. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, the dominant computer processor on the market was Intel's Pentium processor. It was so popular that it had virtually no competition. As a result of this, when they were putting out their new models every year, they had very little reason to innovate, no real reason to spend research and development money for advancement in their tech. They didn't need to take big swings because they already had the market cornered. Well, along came the little processor that could, the AMD, and it quickly kicked the Pentium's ass. For once, Intel was faced with real competition, and so they had to actually stop iterating lazy new processors and come up with something good, or face losing all their market share. And so the winner of the AMD versus Pentium wars were actually us, the computer customers. Because honest competition is generally good, since without it, there's no reason to put out the effort. I have an iPhone, but I want Samsung and Google to make phones that are as good or better than the iPhone, so Apple has motivation to innovate. Apple haters, please don't at me. And if you're tempted to wage war in the comments about capitalism versus socialism or whatever, please don't. This is a channel about tabletop games. I'm just using all this other stuff as examples to illustrate my point. And that point, with respect to TTRPGs, is that while I am a fan of D&D and specifically 5th edition, I want there to be other great games out there. The hobby as a whole benefits by having a healthy spread of options when it comes to playing tabletop games. So bring on your DC-20, Shadowdark, DCC, Daggerheart, Morkborg, and all the others. We should all want these options to exist and flourish, and we should never want any one of them to win. If one of them wins, then it's bad for all of us. And now, let's get back to the original thesis question of this video. Is Flea Mortals being on D&DBeyond good for the hobby, or is it bad for the hobby? I think it's good for MCDM. And just now I'm being told MCDM actually stands for Mastodon Cyborg Deletes Movies. Really? That's weird. Anyway, it's good for MCDM because it means they'll sell more copies to people who might not buy it otherwise. Especially since, as far as I know, they don't have any kind of exclusivity agreement like how Amazon tries to incentivize authors to be exclusive to them. I can still go buy Flea Mortals from the MCDM website, and I think Flea Mortals being on D&DBeyond is good for Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro because it helps them keep players and DMs locked inside their D&DBeyond ecosystem, since that content will work with the Encounters tool and the Maps tool and all the other compendium materials. It makes WotC look good that they are supporting third-party publishers like the spirit of the old OGL days of the early 2000s. It makes them seem like they're not trying to be a monopoly in the industry. But is it good for us, the players? Is it good for the hobby? Is incentivizing the community to stay inside the walled garden a bad thing or a good thing? Ultimately, I don't know, but I'm leaning toward it being a bad thing. I do think time will tell. I would like to hear your opinion and open it up for discussion in the comments, but please be civil. For whatever reason, my channel seems to attract a huge number of #NeverWotC type people, which is ironic because I generally don't trash Wizards of the Coast. I feel like I'm mostly neutral toward them. Also, what do you think MCDM stands for? Because there's absolutely no way to verify what it really means. It's an enigma wrapped in a riddle. Anyway, this is GM Jim telling you that it's okay to like what you like, and anyone who tells you you're wrong for liking what you like is an idiot who doesn't know the difference between a fact and an opinion. Sorry, I'm being told now that I got a little heated there. Now go have fun telling stories with your friends.